Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. So, I just want to do a quick study and question the text is what I want to deal with. So, Abiyah, thank you for this Shabbat. Thank you for this opportunity to come before your people. Let your will be done and your words of wisdom be cherished by those that hear. If this be your words, then you support it. If not, then cast it down. I thank you for that. Yada Yahuwah. All right. So I want to deal with something here. Let me say Shabbat Shalom to my daughter. She just text me. She, so I'm still here. So hey, life happens. Let's keep going. So I'm gonna go over here to Deuteronomy 23 and 1. This is what I want to talk on. And so that's where I'm headed. Going over there now. And let me share my screen. All right. Sharing it. I like to always start in the Torah or in the Tanakh, but this is interesting to me. This is where I'm studying at, what I'm looking at. This is a law. Devarim or Deuteronomy 21. It says, "He who is wounded by crushing of testicles, or whose penis is cut off, shall not enter into the community of Yahuwah." Now, ask the question for me, is this talking about entering into the kingdom altogether or just the 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 convocation, the fellowship? That's what my first question comes about. Let me stop this and let me share from the East board. Going there now. Let me share my screen again. So we can look at what it says as far as the words that are spoken. We're going to look at cutoff and see what it says. Is this Hebrew 3772? That's what we're looking at. And so it says karaf, to cut off, down or asunder, by implication to destroy or consume, specifically to covenant, that is, make an alliance or bargain originally by cutting flesh and passing between the pieces, be chewed, be confederate, covenant, cut, destroy, fail. So it means to actually sever, cut. So, hmm, it's basically making somebody a eunuch. Somebody who's a eunuch or somebody who has that area damaged. Man, that could happen with no fault of your own. So is again, I don't believe it's meaning that you're cut off from um the kingdom, but you're not really whole, so you're not able to fellowship. That's it. Man, that seems kind of harsh, but again, I want to see something. I want to show you something that I don't know how to take it one way or the other, so I'm not going to bias anyone. I have my own personal take on it, but I'm gonna let it stand on its own, and I'm gonna just read something. Let me go over here and read this to you. Kind of interesting to me. I'm over here in what you can call the Brit Shada, the Brit Hadashah, Brit Hadashah, or the New Testament, or here at Messiah or Acts 8. My say, oh, or Acts 8. It says here on what's called verse 25, it says, Then after they had earnestly witnessed and spoken the word of Yahuwah, they returned to Jerusalem, bringing the good news in many villages of the Shamaranim. I think that's supposed to be Samaria, if in English or whatever, regular. But let me keep going. But a messenger of Yahuwah spoke to Philip, so we could say an angel or whatever, saying, Arise and go toward the south along the way which goes down from Jerusalem to Azza. This is desert. And he arose and went and saw a man of Cush, Ethiopia, a eunuch of great authority under the candidate, the sovereigness of the Cushites, who was in charge of all the treasury and had come to Jerusalem to worship. So, was it the eunuch that came to worship, or was it the sovereigness of the Cushites? That's a question I asked. And the reason why I asked that is because the previous one says that they can't come in to the fellowship. Eunuch can't come in. So and he arose and saw a man of Cush, a eunuch of great authority under the candidate of the sovereignty of the Cushites. So his position is under this person. This person was in charge of all of her, he was, this Cushite was under all of her treasury, because the man was under the candidate who was a sovereigness, the woman. So he was under her authority, and say who was in charge of all of her. So the sovereigness, all of her treasury. This Cushite eunuch worked for this sovereigness, this woman. He was in charge of all her monies. And he had come to Jerusalem to worship. Again, going back over here, he who is wounded by crushing of testicles or whose penis is cut off shall not enter into the community of Yahuwah. So he there. Don't say nothing about him going into the place of worship, but he there. So let's keep going. And was returning and sitting in his chariot. He was reading the prophet Yeshayahu. The book of Isaiah, you might as well say. That's the English. Um, this is not modern times of our time. It was not like they had a printing press and they had so many copies of the scrolls that everybody could have. Anybody could have. The oracles belonged to Yasharal, to the Yahudim. Not just anybody would have access to the writings of Isaiah or any other prophet. But this Cushite eunuch had this information. Philip, being brought by the Spirit, the Ruach, I'm pretty sure those things is like, but of course, since the Ruach, he's obedient to the Ruach. But it's got some interesting dynamics to the whole setup that it's like, man, reading the text, you're studying it, finding out what words mean, know what a eunuch is, and know that a eunuch is not supposed to be amongst the congregation. So, and he's got a copy of Yeshayahu in that day and time, over 2,000 years ago, when they were not readily available to everybody. They were in a territory that belonged to them, but they were under the reign of the Romans. Everybody did not have access. This man coming from Ethiopia, Cush, has a copy of this. How and why? I'm like, We know going back, Solomon had so many different women he was messing with. We know he was messing with Sheba, who was a ruler or a sovereigness over that area. Many say that he had a seed line with her, but of course, it's not found in this book, the 66 books that we have, that we call the Bible. Not there. Interesting thing, though, is this. He had so many women, and it talks nothing about the large amount of children that he had. If this man had over thousands of women, are we to think that he was barren? They were all barren? Where's the information on the children? So if he did have children with Sheba, will we not think that this man, this wise king, this great king, would not send a contingent of his own people to be with her to make sure that his seed was protected and covered? That those people would also have information or know knowledge about the writings or the laws of Yahuwah. Yes, this king had messed with a lot of heathen women, but would we not think that he's, send a contingent if there's a child there, and that some of those would still have comprehension or keep up with their relationship with Yah? This Cushite very well could be a descendant of one of those contingent. We don't know. It's not there. Or someone who learned from one of those people. But still, he had access to that writing, the prophet of Yeshayahu. Let me keep going. And the Ruach said to Philip, "Go near and join him in the chariot." And running up, Philip heard him reading the prophet Yeshayahu and said, "Do you know what you are reading?" So Philip identified and knew what that was. He's like, "Do you know what you're reading? And how do you know?" It ain't saying that, but how you know? Why you got that? Again, I'm pretty sure this man had some adornments on him, but I personally believe that, most of the people in that region all looked far similar with their hue, the hue of their skin. But of course, he had likely had dressed accordingly for his position. So he's working for a sovereignist, so he would probably have something to match the royal attire of the sovereignist that he worked with, something that would identify him to be connected to Cush, something that would likely have Philip in any other time not approach this man. But the Ruach led him to approach this man, and he heard him reading Yeshayahu. Doesn't say what language he heard him reading, but he knew what he was reading. He knew full well what he was reading and questioned him about it. And he said, "How am I able unless someone guides me?" So the Cushite, like, how am I able unless somebody guide me? He got something, he reading it, but he don't understand it, he don't comprehend it. Either it's the language problem or the illumination that's involved in it, he don't comprehend. And he called Philip near to come up and sit with him. And the passage of the scripture which he was reading was this: He was led as a sheep to slaughter, and like a lamb silent before its shearer, so he opened not his mouth. The Yeshayahu story is dealing with something then, but most projected to be future. And there are so many things that are in the Tanakh that you see circular, you see happen again and again. So in different time frames, you see the same type of situation occurring. So this matches up to something that was going on with the time frame of Philip. In humiliation, he was deprived of right ruling, and he shall declare his generation. His generation. That time of Yeshayahu was a generation, and this generation, Yahusha, declared that generation right there, because his life was taken from the earth. And the eunuch answering Philip said, I ask you, about whom does the prophet say this? About himself or about some other? So it's obvious that there's, to me, that there's a thought that Yeshayahu was talking about himself. I believe a lot of times he was. Sometimes I think he's talking about Hezekiah, but anyway, or someone else, about some other. And Philip opening his mouth and beginning at this scripture brought to him the good news. Good news is really supposed to be about the kingdom, but again, he brought him the good news. Yahusha. Yahusha is good news because he is the restorer of the breach between the kingdom dominion established with Adam on earth. Yah's will being done on earth was breached and it had to be restored. Yahusha is the restorer of that. It's still Yahuwah's will and his dominion on earth. But okay, keep going. And as they were going on the way, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, Look, water, what hinders me from being immersed? Now, the process of immersion is not clear in the Tanakh or the Torah. So I'm not here to fight for it or fight against it. I myself have been immersed. I myself have immersed others. So I'm not, I know there are some that question the whole process, you know, because it's symbolic, a cleansing. And Philip said, If you believe with all your heart, it is permitted. And he answering said, I believe, son of Elohim. I believe the son of Elohim to be Yahusha the Messiah. I believe that too. Notice though, a eunuch by the dynamic of Devarim 23 is cut off from the community of Yahuwah. Unclean things are cut off from. So this man wanted to be washed. He wanted to be made clean. I'm looking at this thing and seeing something myself, but of course I don't want to influence what you see. So it's stuff you should read yourself and let the Ruach work in you to see what the Ruach wants you to see. Because everybody that reads this doesn't come to the same conclusion. Because not everyone is open to allow the Ruach to lead them. And so I'm not saying that I'm just this open, I'm perfect and open, because again, I'm a babe. I've said this on another, I don't understand everything, but I believe to see this from my own studies, but you got to study to show yourself approved. And he commanded the chariot to stand still, and both Philip and the eunuch went down into the water, and he immersed him. And when they came up out of the water, the Ruach, the spirit of Yahuwah, caught Philip away, and the eunuch saw him no more, for he went his way rejoicing. Philip, however, was found at Ashdod, and passing through, he brought the good news in all cities until he came to Caesarea. Again, the good news according to Yahusha, is the kingdom of Yahuwah, that his will be done on earth as is in the Shamayim. And so I could see how, even with this, the way somebody read it, that they would stop and think that the good news is Yahusha, not realizing that Yahusha is a part of a process. Yahusha is not the end result. He's the way or the direction towards a destination. But many want to stop at the directions and say that's enough. They don't keep going on to reach the destination. And some will take it as even bringing this up and saying this is taking shine off Yahusha when that's not the case. But even a high priest knows that the focal point is not the high priest. The high priest points towards the focal point, which is the Father, Yahuwah. All praises, Yada Yahuwah, all glory, all majesty belongs to Yahuwah. That's all over the Torah. That's all over the Tanakh. But yet, many will give all praises to Yahusha. These are things that you have to study and to get the context. Now, I'm gonna jump somewhere else just because this is still just a study. This is my study. So you got to do your own. Don't take what I'm saying to be word for you. This may be food for you, but it may not. So you got to study for yourself food. But I do want to show you this. Yohanan or John 21 shows something that many should know, but don't seem to know. It says, now there is much else that Yahusha did. If every one of them were written down, I think that the world itself would not contain the written books. So I share that for the purpose to show that the 66 books, which we know that some were taken out, and that's how it came to the number 66. But even with the other ones, the writings are not exhaustive. All of the information is not there. One must study and also allow the Ruach to direct and guide them to find comprehension, find understanding. We stand under Yah to grasp what's really being said and what's supposed to be taken in. I dropped a seed today. If it's supposed to be watered and grow for you, then let that be. But if not, pluck it out and throw it to the side. Everything that is heard is not for every person that hears. Let the eyes see what that are able to see, and let the ears hear that are able to hear. If this is not something that you're able to hear, I'm okay with you not accepting it because it's not about me. It's about him. Be open to him so that you may receive through your own studies, not mine, what you are supposed to get. Thus, you must study to show yourself approved. Just like I looked at something and I seen something and it's like, it draw my interest to that topic, and then I have to go look around to see something that correlates or links up or kind of matches up with that and say, and I get to asking it questions. Yah is not intimidated by our questions. Moses asked him questions. Abraham asked him questions. Job asked him questions. And he's never been intimidated by questions. If you don't seek ye first his kingdom, how do you expect to get his answers and his dominion in your life? Reading is fundamental, but also studying and questioning what you read to find out what is the true context. If I've abused the context, y'all forgive me. But you do your own study. Don't take my word for it. Get in there yourself. Get in there. As my boy, my Zakim, my older brother Craig says, get in there. Get in there. and read and study for yourself to show yourself approved. Shabbat Shalom, Shanquilla Yah, or Shanquilla Carter, One Vision Ministry. All right, I'm going to go on fellowship with some of the Mishpahah. I'm going to have a good old time with the fellas, the Akim, and Shabbat Shalom.